Black History Month means a number of things to me personally. I was born in Glasgow during the 70s. I grew up with my two siblings, with my mum. And during that course of time in the 70s and 80s, I think sort of a series of various events, mainly in the States, but also in the UK and to an extent in Scotland as well, were really looking and touching on Black consciousness and the experience of Black people. Black History Month, as I know it in Glasgow, has been a regular feature for many, many years, and I've always participated in Black History Month because it raises your understanding of cultures and of heritage in a way that we're still struggling to get that level of quality and coverage in schools and through other media outlets. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think Black History Month is a really lovely way for people to come together from all walks of life to educate themselves, to celebrate, and to understand a bit more about themselves and their communities. Yes, I think now more than ever it is a really fundamental part of how we assess ourselves as social, sort of beings, as people who have grown and evolved together over many, many, many hundreds of years. I think it is important that we understand the place and the role, positive and negative, of all cultures across the world before we became so obsessed with boundaries and with protecting boundaries. Interestingly enough, there were African legions guarding the Antonine Wall, which is the irony is never lost on me. So I think it is really important, and particularly now, and particularly in Scotland, where out of the Union, we're the only country in the Union to have a defined race equality framework. So there is attention being paid to the fact that racial discrimination is still systemic, that there are still challenges to be met, and some of those challenges can be focused on and reflected on through Black History Month, as well as the celebration. Too many, but my favourite, I would say, or the most moving over the last couple of years has been the story of Mary Jane Seacole. Mary Jane Seacole was the daughter of a freed slave. She was half Scottish, so her surname was actually Grant. And she grew up in Jamaica. She was a combination of, before nursing was an established profession, she was a combination of herbalist, hospitality owner. You would have called her maybe an early day nurse. She took a lot of instruction from her mother and grandmother in terms of knowing herbs, of knowing how to treat various conditions. She became very adept and efficient in treating conditions. She tended to soldiers at the front of the Boer War, and she paid her own way to get there, and to tend to soldiers from the Jamaican ranks and the British ranks in the Boer War. She made many requests to go to the front line of the Crimean War, where Florence Nightingale had been commissioned by the Queen to go and to tend to soldiers there. Mary Seacole was denied on a number of occasions the permission to go to Crimea under the auspices of permission from the Queen. So she went anyway off her own back, and set up what was loosely described as a sort of hotel, hospital, peer support community centre for sick and injured soldiers. And she drew a lot of attention to herself. On finishing, she came back to the UK bankrupt, but was held high by all of the soldiers and the regiments and battalions that she had tended to and who remembered her at the front of the Crimean War. And she was given acknowledgement by Queen Victoria at the time. And over the last few years, there's been a really strong campaign to have a statue of Mary Seacole erected, which was successfully done. It now stands in the front of St Thomas Hospital in London. And there was also a very successful campaign to have her reinstated in the English education curriculum, where Michael Gove thought it was wise to take her out of the curriculum. And there was a very extensive campaign, of which I joined through my trade union movement involvement, to reinstate her. And so I think it's aspects of Black history like that which are slowly somehow coming back into the curriculum, particularly at school age. But it is about education, and it is about trying to understand why so much of Black history has been removed or ignored or obliterated. And it now is a real excellent opportunity under the environment that we have, particularly with some of the campaigns around Black Lives Matters as well. Black Lives Matters is very much a movement based on enhancing the experience of Black people. But we now have allies all across the spectrum of the population in terms of understanding why it's important to have that level of equality. And that comes through education and knowledge. Just very lastly, I'm really proud to have been involved in the planning group this year with Renfrewshire Leisure to deliver a quite unique COVID-19 Black History Month from Renfrewshire, with lots of local talent, lots of lively debates, lovely music, and I hope everybody gets the chance to input, to expose themselves to a little bit of Black culture through the month of October. But don't let it stop at October. I think now it's really important to understand that educating and celebrating our communities and celebrating the resilience within communities as well is something that has to be done across the board as far as possible in an inclusive way.